I have the pleasure of calling to the stage Professor Karine Nahon, Head of Data Government and Democracy Program at the Reichman University, and led the Missing Persons War Room. Professor.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm going to be a little bit different than my two colleagues that have talked before. I'm not going to talk with a presentation, so that's a start. And I'm not going to talk specifically about one regulation or another. I think we in the business, we have been long talking about those things. Instead, I'm going to have some thoughts and some questions for us about how we address and what are the challenges that we are facing right now. And maybe the challenges that we are facing are not exactly the challenges that we are posing or we are proposing forward. So go with me and let's start with this. So I want to start with the allegation that liberal schools and conceptual frameworks have failed to address disruptive information flows, specifically disinformation, specifically manipulative information flows, which usually comes together with incitement. So we've seen it more than once in different empirical studies that fake news doesn't come alone. In fact, liberal democracies have failed to address both the process of the propagation of disinformation and disruptive information flows, and also the product and the outcome of this process. So in the short time that I have, I would like to describe those two kind of dimensions, but also try to answer the questions of, can we fix what's broken? And I think this is why we're here. So I'll start with liberal democracies that have failed to address the process of propagation of disruptive information flows. And we see disruptive democratic processes such as homophily, such as polarization, such as segregation, disinformation. They are deepening the cleavages that exist in different groups in different countries, by the way. And the 7th of October events have increased, of course, these phenomena, and Gen AI have exponentially increased this failure, a synthetic construction of knowledge, and scams become really ubiquitous. And I want to answer the question of in what sense did liberal democracies have failed? So for years, we've been taught and used as an axiom that lie doesn't have legs. And well, we've been lied to for all those years. We again and again, we empirically see that propagation of disinformation goes faster, farther, and to a larger variety of people, and that fake doesn't come alone. I already said that. It comes with hyperbole trends, it comes with incitement, it comes with racism, when we're talking about fake news of political events and social events. So for years, we used to look at fake as if it's the anomaly. In fact, if you look at most of the solutions that we provide in the industry, they try to look at the anomaly, at the noise, as if fake is the noise, right? And I would like to claim that, in fact, not fake, I wouldn't like to call it truth, for example, but not fake narratives are the anomaly in cyberspace and social networks. In fact, with the development of Gen AI, think about it, almost every text that you see in a way has a synthetic kind of intervention in it, and it doesn't have to be deep fake at the extreme. So there is more fake and other types of information flows than other types of information flows in the world. And in a world of Gen AI, we can't ignore that it impacts our consciousness, our norms, our attitudes, and our ability to understand the world around us. How do we, in fact, interpret the world around us? So when social actors, politicians, campaigners, governments, social movements, they start to use fake not as a bug, but as a feature, this is when we have a problem as a society. So ask any policeman, and they will tell you that they can enforce the law if you have 5% of people that are anomaly behave and 95% that are normative. But if we agree with what I said before, is that the 95% is not the anomaly, the 95% is the fake, then we have a problem of regulating it. We have a problem, in fact, trying to regulate it. Same thing, as I said about fake. Most of the information in our ecosystem is fake. Then our ability to regulate it and enforce it almost drops to zero. Second thing, we talked about the process. Let's talk about the product. Let's talk about how liberal democracy have failed to address the product and output of this propagation of disruptive information flow. So because fake is not a bug, it's a feature. For example, don't believe me? Go to Steve Bannon, for example, which stated it very clearly, that the target is basically to flood, it's a quote, forgive me, to flood the zone with shit. What he meant is, let's flood the zone with fake news. So the problem is not the ability to address this information flows, which we do a lot, but in many cases, the product of disinfluence campaigns are targeted towards destruction of trust, destruction of social resilience through the harm of institutions' authority. And indeed, we see in, for example, take the democracy index that have been following that for years, a decline in institutions' authority in all democratic, liberal democracies, not only in Israel, not only in the main one, decline of social resilience, and in fact, the construction of knowledge of humanity's challenge. The host of these disruptive flows, the platforms, we know that. We've been working for years with those. They do the minimum that is needed, relying on AI mainly, on technology, to address these failures. And mainly, in many cases, they want to say, I don't want to be the arbitrator of the truth. Who wants to deal with fake news? It's easier to deal with racism. It's easy to deal with incitement to violence. But when it comes to fake, it's a little bit more shaky, right? ISOC Israel I think you mentioned it, Cedric, has conducted the research that shows that it takes around between 5 days to 7 days to address, to those companies to address the disinformation that's unlawful. And those are trusted flaggers. Think about it, how much times it takes for a regular person to be addressed by the companies. A lot of more time. So let's ask the question, can we fix what's broken? So we are becoming better in detecting disruptive information. All this day is about different technologies like Expose and others that have been detecting that. In fact, today you will see many of those. And this is solutions, because they're focusing on detection, they less focus on recovery, are using tactics to fight back. And I want to talk a little bit about that. But the problem with detection is, first, we still struggle with Gen AI, deepfake. Detection is still with a high rate of error on those things. It's not ripe. Second, detection is one aspect of influence. It focuses mainly on the narratives, right? It focuses mainly on the public sphere, on the behavior, but it is limited in understanding the impact on our consciousness, on our norms, on our construction of mind. By the time we see it through behavior, through anomaly, it's already late because people has stabilized their way that they think about truth, that they think about what they see in front of them. And finally, detection is great, but what do we do with it? That's the bigger question. Also, regulation around the world goes through labeling in the last years, if you've seen it, in the OECD, in other places, and trusting that the labeling will be enough to do the job. And we see that this is not the case. Even when people are aware that information is fake, it still seeds doubts and chaos in their minds. In other words, detection labeling is not enough. I would suspect that it's not enough anymore to rely on the agency, what we've done for years as liberals, on the individuals to solve these problems. And media literacy is not enough as well. I'm sorry, Niva. If you are media skilled, like most of the people in this room, it doesn't mean that you will use it specifically for good purposes. So what do we do? So to start thinking about the solution, and I think both Cedric and Niva has mentioned that, we have to start building healthy networks, what I call healthy networks. And for that, we need to understand that there is no one solution that fits all. And technology can help, but the seeds of the solution relies on people and on networks of people. And we have so many stakeholders in this thing that that you can't really rely on one actor. We need to use the structure of society. We need to use networks and not only rely on agency. And the big question that we ask ourselves, if detection is not enough and labeling is not enough, what are the proactive measures we need to take? Can we talk about injecting truth to the ecosystem? By whom? Who will decide and be the arbitrator of the truth? And those are questions that we've been aligned for or distance ourselves from because we wanted to maintain the internet as a free space. But the truth is, again, like the ostrich, the internet is anyway too much regulated and highly regulated by everybody, the ISPs, the NSPs, the moderators, the content, the platforms, and the governments as well. So we've been, in a way, hiding our head as an ostrich in the ground. Information flows are regulated. So let's talk about two ways to address those disruptive flows. First of all, I think we need to more rely on self-regulation as a tool to address disruptive information flows. We need to demand accountability and responsibility. But foremost, we have to strengthen the governance of the main actors. And I'm talking about the big companies. I'm talking about intermediaries. I'm talking about civil society itself. And we have to go back to the traditional institutions of authority and the gatekeepers, that have been showing to us as societies high levels of professionalism, data-driven organization and independence, and they should be strengthened at the expense of, I would say, social networks. And the big difference is that it's not enough to rely on local gatekeepers. We learned that. But we have to start thinking about international networks of institutions of authority that should be alert, act, and inject the non-disruptive information flows through the ecosystem. Now, it's very, very delicate, right? Because the first thing that I say is, if there is a lie, don't maintain silent. We learned that it's not enough to maintain silent because information flows that are disruptive and disinformation propagates much faster than none. I will finish up in a second. And we know that those mechanisms that basically are just labeling are very, very weak. And finally, I want to talk about the role of civil society. We've seen after the 7th of October that the civil society have a strong role. We have to strengthen this role by not only detecting, but also maintaining the ability to say what is not a lie. It's not something that we hide anymore. We have to face it. We have to say it. And we have to try strengthening, but that the help of those networks. So few thinking a little bit out of side of the box. We've been used not to talk about those things, but I think it's time to put them on the table. Thank you.